Good morning, everyone. I'm Anthea. Today, we would like to talk about English in post-colonial Hong Kong and Brunei. The presentation will cover the role of English in the domains of education and employment for both areas. Then, we will compare the key English-related developments in Hong Kong with those of Brunei. Finally, we will briefly conclude our significant findings. Let's begin with the part of Hong Kong. First of all, I would like to give you some background information about the history of Hong Kong. It was a British colony from 1841 to 1997. After 150 years of British control, the sovereignty was returned from Britain to China. Under British governance, Hong Kong was gradually moving from a manufacturing base to a service and knowledge-based society, which required a higher education level of people. Here comes our question. How does this influence the education domain after the handover? The answer is that the tertiary education sector in Hong Kong has experienced a substantial expansion from elite to mass education in the past 30 years. Although the whole education level of Hong Kong was raised, the policy brought with it some negative impacts on the perceived status of university students in general. Even though there is a much wider spectrum of the student population who receive a university education, the expectations of the university graduates' language abilities and communication skills of English in the workplace still remain high. This causes fresh graduates hard to find a job. At the same time, many degree holders are competing for jobs requiring lower qualifications. Furthermore, the changes in the Hong Kong industry also require people to have a higher level of proficiency in English and Putonghua in accordance with globalization. A policy that the government implemented correspondingly is the biliteracy and trilingualism policy. Together with the 9-year compulsory education policy since 1978, Chinese Hong Kongers have acquired basic literacy skills in English. However, despite being a co-official language, English functions more like a foreign than a second language in Hong Kong. Most people are reluctant to use English entirely as the medium of communication among themselves. Instead, English is more often used as a mixed code when people converse with one another in Cantonese. Cantonese English code mixing is ubiquitous in Hong Kong society, and yet it is widely perceived as indicative of the speaker's or writer's inability to use pure Chinese or English. Therefore, it is strictly forbidden in schools after the handover. According to the Education Bureau guideline, EMI and CMI teachers need to stick to English and Chinese respectively. Nevertheless, the guideline removes one important teaching resource at the disposal of bilinguals, especially EMI teachers. They find it hard to clarify difficult concepts to low proficiency students and help build rapport by reducing social distance with pure English. On the other hand, CMI teachers cannot introduce or consolidate students' bilingual lexicon. One of the important findings is that code switching can be EMI-induced. This helps explain the following policy. To strive for a reasonable balance between Chinese and English and meet the steady demand for the balanced bilinguals in the post-colonial society, the Hong Kong government enforced the mother tongue education policy. After the handover, only 30% of secondary schools have the right to remain English medium, while the rest must change to Chinese medium. However, the policy violates social equity as it perpetuates uneven access to the predominant symbolic capital, English, to the disadvantage of children from socioeconomically underprivileged families. Moreover, the dual streaming policy was criticized for causing socially divisive. Those who fail to get a place in an English medium school may be seen as incompetent and labeled second class. The root of the problem is that in Hong Kong, Chinese and English are unequal partners, where English is perceived to be more prestigious with the tremendous added value, which is crucial for anyone eager to move up the social ladder. Although there are benefits of being educated in one's mother tongue, there are also undeniable potential gains in target language proficiency for those receiving instruction in English. The problem is also reflected in the domain of employment. I'll now pass the time to Sophia to discuss it.
Hello, I'm Sylvia. Now I will talk about the Hong Kong English from the employment perspective. First of all, for the changes in employment aspects, the role of English becomes gradually more important in workplaces. 67% of respondents reported that English is the most frequently used language in workplaces before handover. Also, on the job training in language skills for professional positions also arose to enhance the English proficiencies of employees. After handover, there is a marked increase in the numbers of people with at least some competence in spoken English as a result of gradual expansion in service industries. Also, over 79% of the total labor force are required to possess basic English communication skills in order to understand the needs of English-speaking clients. Corresponding to this practical need is a steady demand for the basic English communication classes. Second, the usage of English has become widespread. Before handover, only 14% of workers used to speak in English. Furthermore, English is the main medium of internal communication, mainly in civil service. After handover, though bilingualism tends to be limited to the senior executives and managerial staff of the government and business sector as before, there is clearly a rise in the number of Hong Kongers capable of communicating in simple and pidginized English. Pidginized English can be represented by the communication between the food vendors and Filipino domestic helpers in the wet market. It creates a broad range of English accents and syntactic complexities, but few vendors would get them wrong. Third, the importance of Chinese is rising. After the handover, there was an upsurge in the use of Chinese. Also, in community and social services, Chinese is the main medium for communicating with the public. And more is that Putonghua skills are now commonly assessed in employment interviews, especially the frontline staff in tourism and retail sectors. This shows an increasing need for Putonghua in workplaces, and the requirement of language competence for careers are strengthened. Under two economic agreements, the economic cooperation and integration between Hong Kong and mainland China are tighter and closer. As a result, the market need of Putonghua skills is enhanced. Although Putonghua plays a less important role than English and Cantonese at present, given the power and presence of the mainland, it seems inevitable that Putonghua will eventually assume the status and functions enjoyed by English and Cantonese. Here are the continuity in the employment aspect. The knowledge of English determines financial and corporational mobility. People in Hong Kong assume that higher knowledge in English will lead to better employment prospects. To raise employees' job-specific English standards, many international firms and big companies such as IBM and Hong Kong Bank include ESP courses in their corporate training programs. For people working in the business sectors, English is one criterion for promotion on the par with one's professional competence.
Hello, I'm Crystal, and I'll take the part of Brunei. Let's take a look at the history first. Brunei Darussalam had become a British protectorate in 1888 after the signing of Treaty of Protection. The treaty was negotiated by Sir Hugh Low at the same year after the British attack in 1846, due to the internal conflicts over who was the rightful sultan. Later, Brunei under the British Empire also experienced the occupation period of Japan. In 1954, the Sultan, Resident, and High Commissioner met and agreed to authorize the draft of a constitution. In 1959, the constitution agreement was signed in Brunei town, and when time passed by, Brunei finally was granted full internal self-government and marked her independence in 1984. Brunei Darussalam is a small sultanate in Borneo. During the colonial period, only a few missionary schools that generally taught in English were established. English was usually used by the colonial officials and a small group of elites only, with Malay continued being the dominant language in Brunei. However, after the independence of Brunei in 1984, a bilingual education system of Malay and English had been adopted, which greatly increased the English competence of Bruneians. Being considered as one of the wealthiest countries in Asia, her economy largely relies on her oil production, which requires large demand of foreign language speakers and latest scientific knowledge for her sustainable economic development, and hence making the nation aware of the benefits of English proficiency during her early years of independence after being colonized by Britain. So next, we would like to introduce more about Bruneian English in terms of citizens' attitude, education, government, and employment respectively.
Hi, I'm Gigi. Now I'm going to talk about the attitude perspective of English in Brunei. For general, English is not considered as a threat, and most populace has recognized the importance of English as an international language. In Brunei, literacy in both Malay and English is highly valued, while the other indigenous language of Brunei have no literary tradition, and there has been no institution. Yet, English is not always viewed in the positive light for Bruneian. Some are concerned about the impact on the Malay language, as well as the influence on traditional Bruneian culture, value, and identity. Have you heard about Bruneian English? Bruneian English is actually a regional dialect of English that is widely spoken in Brunei. Even though the national language is Malay, Bruneian English is significantly affected by Malay and influenced by Chinese dialects. Local speakers are usually aware that the pronunciation is different, but not for the grammatical differences. Bruneian use certain lexicon items which are not used in standard British English. For example, they use the base form of the verb in present tense regardless of numbers or the person they are talking about. Code switching is prevalent in bilingual or multilingual speakers. Hence, it is not rare to see code switching in Brunei. Their code switching are between English and Malay, and university students usually hold a positive attitude towards code switching with local teachers. And code switching in Brunei not just happen in an informal situation, it will also happen in government offices and some formal situations.
The next part would be the language used in government. Research shows that Malay dominates both in formal contexts such as government newspaper and official documents, as well as informal contexts such as spoken and written communication between friends and family in Brunei. Being the national language of Brunei, Malay shows dominance in all written communication by the government, including documents, forms, and letters. The finding confirms that Malay is the preferred language for official communication, especially when the government is aiming to mobilize some kind of actions towards her citizens. So, next, we will take a look at Bruneian English from an employment perspective. As Barry in 2011 has summarized, native English speakers are endowed with cultural capitals that provide them with a wealth of privileges, including employability, status, and prestige. Therefore, in many Asian countries, the English proficiency of a native speaker usually translates as an individual's accumulated competence. This is particularly relevant given the increase in international students traveling to Brunei to study at the UBD, which means the University of Brunei Darussalam. Let's take a look at the case in Brunei now. The medium of instruction of most of the Brunei private companies is English, but in the public sector, Malay is the main mode of communication. Overall speaking, many employers believe that a good command of English language is essential for a highly competitive employer. Therefore, most companies are willing to hire locals with high bilingual competence, as this is one of the government initiatives, but skilled expatriates and other foreign workers are also welcome in the Brunei labor market force. Moreover, in order to enact the commitment to bilingual education, since 1984, a significant number of its English teacher requirements have been outsourced to educational consultancy and recruitment company called Center for British Teachers, CFBT, which is a registered English charity by the Brunei Ministry of Education. Some critical educators view the English language as a form of cultural linguistic capital, as we said before. So therefore, in Brunei, the CFBT has provided an avenue to this capital. Actually, the fact has been recognized by the Brunei Darussalam government as well, and it might be the main reason why CFBT can be chosen to contract with the country's Ministry of Education to work. This concept could be also explained by the employment for the expatriate teachers in Brunei.
Now, shall we talk about education in Brunei regarding English? Education in Brunei can be described in three main phases during the last 100 years. These are the residency period, the period between the ending of the British residency period and independence, and the post-independence period. Before independence, there was a growing need for English. Many private English schools were established, and as a result, there was a shortage of trained English teachers. English was introduced in education as a medium of instruction in 1951, using to teach primary school students. Even we see the rising status of English. In 1959, Malay was recognized as the official language of the country. In 1985, the Sistem Pendidikan Bahasa, the bilingual system of education was implemented, replacing the system of division into either English or Malay medium education. But then, people find that English soon took over as a medium of instruction as students could actually avoid all Malay medium elective if they desired. As a result, an English-dominant secondary education is formed. At that time, there was an increase in English language proficiency in students starting from secondary school, and according to a survey study at that time, only 1 of 60 participating sixth form students in Brunei claimed to dislike the system, feeling that it compromised his achievement in other areas. Let me further explain to you the detail of the bilingual education system. This single education system was set up in 1984. All the subjects except English language were taught in Malay in the lower primary level, and in the upper primary level, English as a subject, mathematics, history, science, and geography were also taught through the medium of English. When they reached the upper secondary and university level, only Malay language was taught in Malay. Wrigley once said, the Bahasa system provides an illusion of equality compared to the former situation in which there were separate streams of education.
Here are the real changes of English in two places. For the employment aspect, employability and popularization are compared. In Hong Kong, English is still the main medium of written communication in white-collar employment, and spoken English is still the major role in the professional world. In the case of Brunei, most of the Bruneians believe that English is essential for being a competitive employee. English is also crucial if Bruneians want to access government or international job positions. Apparently, the workplaces in both places put great attention to English. In terms of popularization, in Hong Kong, more and more locals are capable to talk in simple English, even though some of them are blue-collar workers. In Brunei, after the adoption of the bilingual education policy, English has become more popular among the society. The Center for British Teachers is an example to show the increasing demand for English education due to the increasing popularity of English among workplaces.
I believe you must see the difference and similarity in attitude and education between Brunei and Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, the general consider a good command of English a key to better prospect in higher education and career advancement. In Brunei, the situation is more or less the same. People also believe good English is extremely useful for academic and career success. Yet, Bruneians worry about the influence on traditional Malay culture and values, while Hong Kong citizens don't seem to have this kind of issue when speaking of the widespread of English. Students in both Hong Kong and Brunei recognize the value of English as an international language. Hong Kong students have strong instrumental motivation to acquire English as they know the benefits it may bring. This also happened in Brunei. Most students choose to study in English than Malay. For parents, Hong Kong parents prefer some form of English immersion program by favoring English medium schools for their children. In Brunei, parents hope that the children acquire English as their second language to learn most of the things in Malay first as a mother tongue. For education, the medium of instruction in Hong Kong is 30% of English medium instruction and 70% of Chinese medium instruction. Mixed codes are banned in Hong Kong school. In Brunei, they teach Malay in the first 3 years of primary teaching, and then, beginning in high school, all subjects are taught in English except for the Malay course. In Hong Kong, students who cannot go to English medium schools obtain additional education from Hong Kong private ELT tutorial centers or private tutor, and in Malay, most high-performing students choose to continue their study in English.
In conclusion, for Hong Kong at present, English still remains the status of high language within a certain time. However, due to the rise of the importance in quote-unquote skills, the status of English may be deprived from it. As for Brunei, the development and status of English is stable and equally significant as Malay in all the sectors of the city. In short, English still has a high prestige in both Hong Kong and Brunei after decolonization. That is the end of our sharing. Thank you.